Hello, 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 everybody. This is Ebony Vaughn, and I am coming to you once again by way of Triple G Living God Goals and Grind. I hope that you guys are having an amazing evening and you have gotten through the week and you are ready to rest or to have a good time, whatever that is. I am coming to you on tonight as I always do. I am so happy to be here today. And as always, I come to you by way of Triple G Living, God Goals and Grind, where we are overcoming every obstacle, we are slaying every giant, and we are walking in our God-given authority and assignment on earth. And as always, I am here to encourage, to exhort, and to equip the people of God for purpose. And I love the opportunity to just come and share with you for what I believe is helpful and meaningful, and what God is saying in this hour. As always, running at the bottom of the screen are my books. And you are certainly invited to purchase any one of my books. Fight, which is flourishing in God's hand and timing. Gifts, which is God's infinite imagination fulfilled through servanthood. And then my last book, which is Pursuing the Heart and Mind of God Through Prayer. These are amazing, I believe, discipleship tools that are helpful in building, edifying, and equipping the people of God for purpose. And so you will not be disappointed. You are able to get any one of those copies by hitting my website or my store, which is at triplegi.com, or you can find me on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart.com, on many online platforms. So again, I am excited to be here. And tonight, I just want to, just take a few minutes just to talk about something that I believe is so important for those of you who don't know, who are joining me possibly for the first time. Not only am I a teacher, but I am also a therapist, and I have a clinical practice in the Owens Mills area, Nexus Wellness Group, and I'm so excited about the expansion and the expansion and launch of this therapy practice. But I wanted to talk today just a little bit about mental health. A lot of times when I come on here, I either talk about the Word of God or I talk about mental health. But tonight, I just want to bring some encouragement to those of you. Because listen, we are in a definitely a difficult time, and there's been so much going on in the news, with the loss of those, two people. Well, not just two people, but more than two people. But those recent losses by suicide. And then also just the many people that have been struggling with grief, whether it's grief with the loss of a loved one, or just plain grief as it relates to transitions in life. So all over the land, so many people are going through. There are blessings and there are difficult times, and I believe in these times, God's grace abounds even the more. And earlier this week, I had the opportunity to share an encouraging word to a group of intercessors. And one of the things that I spoke about was just, God's abounding grace, just how, how important it is for us to understand that even when things are negative things are raging in our lives and all over the land, we have to believe as the people of God that his grace is abounding more, right? And so, I am encouraged by that. And I hope that you are encouraged by that as well. When I think about mental health, I think about, we all know depression and anxiety and all of the other mental disorders that you often hear about, whether in social media land or all over, but one of the things that I believe is just as important is undiagnosed mental health issues, or undiagnosed, maybe there is not a formal diagnosis, but yet we struggle internally with thoughts and feelings of the past, maybe of the current, disappointment, frustrations, anger, resentments. All of these things are just as lethal as mental illness. And it is so important for us to constantly be in a state of reflection, be in a state of introspection, but more importantly, be in a state of caring for ourselves. I can't say enough. Not all mental health, challenges are diagnosable, right? There are so many internal battles that we have as people where maybe we're not seeing a therapist, or maybe it has not reached the point where others see the manifestation of it. But I believe that it is in those, more difficult and challenging places in our lives where it hasn't been diagnosed, that we are also in a very vulnerable place. And I just want to encourage someone to take care of yourself. Make sure that you are monitoring your mental health. Make sure that you are monitoring your need for rest. Make sure that you are monitoring, your need for encouragement, your need for love and support and fulfillment. One of the things that I talked about in a video earlier this week is just how, there is this cliche that we often say, which is so true. And that cliche is check on your strong friends. They need help too. And I believe that without a shadow of a doubt. But I also know by experience, whether it is by me, but also by those that I work with, is that oftentimes those of us who consider ourselves strong and those of us who are usually always helping others, we don't always extend, because we are caught in the role of being a helper to others. And so it is important for us to ask for help. It is important for us to know when we need rest. It is important for us to understand our body's communication to us when it's time to stop, when it's time to take a refresher, when it's time for you to slow down, when it's time for you to reflect and maybe refocus or re-strategize. It is so important for us to listen to ourselves. And I started off by saying that not everybody who's in a vulnerable state emotionally and mentally has a diagnosable mental illness. And so it's important for us to understand that mental health covers us all. It covers us all, staying informed as it relates to our bodies and our minds. The other thing that it is so important for us to understand, that there is truly there is truly a physical death, and then there is an emotional death. There is a spiritual death that oftentimes, we experience, whether that is through feelings of emptiness, lack of direction. Sometimes we just feel numb. We get to a place in our lives where we experience numbness. And it could be that we are so entrenched with the cares and the affairs of the world, or the cares and affairs and things of other people. But there are times when we are just simply tapped out, where we are drained, and when we are emotionally empty and spiritually empty. And it's important for us to recognize those times. Although it is not a diagnosable mental illness, it doesn't mean that we're not still struggling with our mental health. So a lot of, and the reason why I wanted to say this, because a lot of times when people think mental health, it's like, oh, I really don't have an issue in that area, or I haven't been diagnosed with depression or this or that. And it's like, it's not just about what you're diagnosed with. It's not just about what you sit in front of a therapist to talk about, but oftentimes we hit these difficult places in our lives where we are on E. And it is important for us to reach out. It is important for us to reach out, whether it's reaching out to someone, whether it is getting on our knees and on our face and seeking God, whether it is, us gaining the support that we need, whether it is through classes or therapy or whatever that source of encouragement and source of guidance is. It is important for us to understand that our mental health is just as important as any other thing. I also want to encourage those of you who do feel like there is, possibly something more going on, like depression or grief or anxiety, or whatever that might be, that you seek the help you need through a therapist. One of the things that I understand more than anything is that you don't always need to go to a therapist in order for you to get the help that you need. But you have to be able to have enough insight and awareness, to understand what you need for the season that you're in. Okay. Not everybody is going to go to a therapist, but that doesn't mean that they still don't need healed. That doesn't mean that they still don't need refreshing, that they still don't need revival internally. And so it is important for us to really monitor our internal worlds. And so, quite simply, that's what I wanted to talk about tonight: the importance of us monitoring our internal world and then doing something about it. Right. Because a lot of times we experience feelings and yet we don't do much about them. But it's time for us to really begin to examine our lives, examine our internal world. And if you're not okay, be willing to say that you're not okay. If there are things that you need to do, be willing to do those things. The Bible talks about how faith without works is dead. And while this is not the exact scripture for the exact context that I'm talking about, what I am saying is that if you know that there's something wrong, then you need to do something about it. In order for us to change where we are right now, we have to do something that we're not doing right now. And so it's important for us to take action in the areas of our mental health, and it's also important for us to be honest with ourselves about where we are. A lot of times we lie to ourselves and we say things like, it's not that bad, I'll be okay, I just need this and I just need that. And it's almost like, is that really true? I mean, it could be true, but is it really true? So it's important for you to be honest with yourself as it relates to getting the help that you need. I have been, for the last month and a half, I have been running nonstop. And I have been, you know, I've had a lot of things on my plate, and I recognized and realized that I saw it on me. I not only did I see it on my face, but I also felt it on my body. I felt the tiredness, and I had to begin to do things to really deal with that. And I still am, like, getting more rest. And you know, I had to say to myself, look, you got to stop going to sleep late. You know, you have to start getting into bed early. You need to, you know, put something, you need to drink more water. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because we have to know enough about our bodies to understand what we need. And we can't just go and not stop and get the rest that we need and give the body what we need. And I'm telling you, and there are times where you are going to be busy. You know, for me, you know, starting this new venture and, you know, just doing all the things that I had to do, I knew that, you know, it's expected that I was going to be nonstop busy, busy, busy. But when your body says it's time to slow down, then you need to slow down. And that's what I'm talking about, being able, having enough awareness and insight to stop when your body says to stop, or stop before your body tells you to stop. We're talking about taking care of ourselves, you know, and that's a physical aspect, but a spiritual aspect. Sometimes we can be going. We haven't prayed the way we should. We haven't sought God's presence. We haven't read the word as we should, and we feel it. We feel it in you know, within ourselves as we move from day to day. You know, we're spiritually not where we need to be. We're not strengthening our spiritual man. So not only is it strengthened, is it important to strengthen your physical body, but it's also important for you to strengthen your spiritual, you know, your spiritual aspect. And then not only is it important for you to strengthen that spiritual area, it's also important for you to strengthen your mind and your emotions by giving yourself rest, by allowing yourself time to where your mind is not racing, where you're not from one thought to the other constantly. You have to be able to rest. Okay, not only rest mentally, but rest physically, rest spiritually. We need rest, right? And it is so important for us to, you know, understand this, not only know it, but also to actually do something about it. We're talking about taking care of ourselves. You know, you know, in light of, you know, the past couple of weeks and the challenges that we have saw, you know, take by storm on social media or on the many, you know, media platforms, these two suicides. And I gotta tell you, I don't, you know, I definitely don't like to talk a lot about things that I don't know about, but I will say that suicide is real. Feeling overwhelmed and hopeless is real for so many people, but grace abounds more. But I will say that, you know, having those feelings of hopelessness and despair are very real. And for the loved ones of those who may struggle, you know, who may, you know, have fallen as a result of suicide, you may never know. And I just want to bring encouragement to family and to friends and those that are connected to people who may have done this or who may have been close to this place. You don't always know. They don't always share that information with you. There is a tremendous amount of guilt and you know, bargaining that happens when something as significant as suicide takes place, because you know, people are thinking to themselves, could I have done something different? Maybe if I would have known. I just talked to them last night, why didn't I hear it in their voice? Why didn't I know? And here's the thing, you know, if People don't want you to know what's going on in their lives mentally and emotionally. They're not going to show it or tell you. Even if you see it, they may say, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm fine. It's up to that person to seek the help that they need, unless, the only way that we can help someone um, without their permission is if they are visibly in a place of harming themselves or others. And then at that point, you can, involuntarily get them help. But if they're not showing you those signs, those family members, loved ones, friends, I need to encourage you tonight that you can't always tell that. You don't always know that. And it is so important. I know that this might not help, but I need to encourage someone because that bargaining is real when it comes to grief. Why didn't I? If only I would have. These are the things that we say in that while we're grieving, and you just don't know all the time. And so not only is it important for you to check on your loved ones, make sure that your loved ones know that you love them and that you're there for them. But also, people, my encouragement is to cry out, ask for help when you need it. Isolation and withdrawing is the biggest pit as it relates to dealing with hopelessness and dealing with depression. When you pull away from the world, when you pull away from your loved ones and your family members off and go into that place of despair and hopelessness, remember, there's nothing else coming in. There's nothing else coming in. So all you have is your thoughts. All you have is your emotions. All you have is what you're thinking, and nothing is coming in. And so it's important for us to understand this because we have to be able to know ourselves enough to know I can't be alone right now. I need I need some encouragement around me. I need the word of God. I need to talk to my sister or brother. I need to maybe call a therapist. I need to go to the hospital, whatever that is. Now, tonight, I'm talking about caring for yourself. Tonight, I'm talking about mental health, but I'm also speaking to that person that's struggling with mental health. And I'm also speaking to that loved one that's connected to that person, right? Because guess what? We are all affected, whether it's you or not. If you are connected to them emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, guess what? It affects us all. Right. And so these are things that we need to understand. We need to understand first and foremost. I started off by saying our mental health is not always a diagnosable illness. Oftentimes, mental health has everything to do with the internal challenges that you have going on that leaves you restless, that leaves you frustrated and angry and depressed and stuck and all of those experiencing all those emotions. It may not be a diagnosable illness, but guess what? It's still your mental health is still compromised. Okay, so I don't want you to just look at mental health. It's a diagnosis. Absolutely not. Mental health has everything to do with where you are. Okay, so that's what I started off. But then I also talked about how our mental health includes every aspect of us as three-part beings. It's our spiritual health, it's our mental health, it's our physical health. We have to nurture every area of who we are. Every area of our lives have to be nurtured. It has to be cared for. It has to be developed and cultivated and tended to. right? I also talked about how it's important for us to allow our bodies to speak to us. When do you need rest? When should you eat more? You know, what when you need exercise, whatever your body needs, you have to have enough insight and self-awareness to feed it what it needs. Feed your spiritual life what it needs. This is the source of who we are. We have to feed our spiritual lives. We have to feed our spiritual lives with prayer, with the word of God. We have to feed our spiritual lives with meditation. Okay, we have to feed our mind with positivity. We have to feed our mind daily with new information that replaces the old information. We're talking about caring for ourselves. And then I went on to talk about how, not caring for ourselves can lead to hopelessness and despair, which could then, be, maybe a person can become suicidal and experiencing that level of death, that death in suicide. It's not just about physical death, but there is also spiritual death. There is also that mental numbness and emotional numbness. We get to that place in our lives when we are drained. We get to that place in our lives where we feel empty, where we feel like we don't have any more to give. Okay, that is another aspect of mental health, where maybe you are not dying physically, but guess what? You are empty on the inside, or at least you feel empty on the inside. These are things that we need to monitor, we need to manage, and we need to prevent by being aware and having the insight necessary to take care of ourselves. And then I talked about how we are all connected, and how these things, when it comes to mental illness, when it comes to mental health challenges, we are all connected and we are all affected. And although we can't always tell when somebody is having challenges, right? We can't always tell. We can check on them. We can ask them, are they okay? We can monitor them. But at the end of the day, we don't know. And when somebody has an intention of ending their lives, we don't always know that. And so I'm speaking to that family member or that friend who's living with guilt and who's living with discouragement because they felt like they should have been able to do something, or they should have known. And that is not always what happens. And so all of these things are important as it relates to us taking care of ourselves. Listen, this is such a tremendous topic now, guys. Listen, I've been in this field for 27 years now. This is the 27 years. So it's always been prevalent in my life and in my life's assignment. But I do understand that we are getting to a place in this nation where the focus has to be on our internal world. Time out for the images and time out for all the accolades and accomplishments and achievements. Those things are wonderful. Those are God things. Those things are great. But there is a greater need for us to focus on the internal world of our lives, so that all that other stuff can flow from a place from a healthy place, from a place of authenticity, from a place of wholeness and freedom. It's about us getting to that place of wholeness. And I truly believe that God's grace, is enabling this us as a nation to make this a big deal right now. And I'm glad about it. I'm excited about it, and I am also just have such a desire and a passion to see people free. Freedom has everything to do with emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, financial. My mandate is to see the people free. That is my passion and that is my purpose and desire. And so I hope that this was encouraging to someone. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Nothing more, nothing matters more than you taking care of you. God bless you and have an amazing evening.